Chapter 6 Beaver Blood. Norbert began to stir. He could feel a thumping pain take hold of his head as he began to wake up. He opened his eyes and squinted. The sun was up and shining directly on the pale cream curtains. He was blissfully unaware of what had happened or where he was until he tried to move his arms. His vision cleared and he became aware that he was tied up and lying next to a skinny, naked young man. All the terrible events of last night flooded his memory and he began to tremble. He twisted onto his side and looked at the sleeping human next to him. He tried to wriggle free of the belts that bound his paws, but they were on tight, and he became more and more frustrated the harder he tried. He knew he wasn't going to get out of this alive, and this feeling of defeat soon turned to anger. He wanted to hurt John more than anything. If he wasn't going to get out of this, he wanted to at least hurt that piece of shit human. He gave up trying to get free and began to wriggle his way to John's face. Once he was close enough, he opened his mouth and with a savage thrust, he bit down on John's neck with his sharp beaver teeth. John woke suddenly and screamed out in pain, thrashing and twisting. Blood began to run into Norbert's mouth, and with one sharp movement, he pulled away from John, ripping a small chunk of skin from John's neck. "Ah! You fucking cunt! What the fuck?" John screamed as he twisted and fell off the bed with fright. Norbert spat the small piece chunk of skin onto the bed, spraying the sheets with John's blood. John stood up with his hand pressed to his neck and looked at Norbert with bewilderment. Norbert remained belly down on the bed, looking up at John with hate-filled eyes, panting through clenched, bloody teeth. "Fuck you, John! Fuck you, you sick son of a bitch!" he spat, spraying more of John's blood over the sheets. "You sick!" In a snap, John's mind lost all reason and control, overwhelmed by physical pain and hurtful rejection. A murderous anger filled his body and took over. He wished death upon this furry demon. John grabbed Norbert by the back of his head, jerking his face up, and began to deliver punch after punch with furious lack of restraint that would make a meth-crazed Tuco Salamanca look tame. Like a sledgehammer, his fist smashed the bone and cartilage in Norbert's face, splitting skin and pulverizing his flesh. Blood began to blot into the fur and splatter with each blow. The attack seemed to last forever. Pain turned to a black numbness, and only the sickening sound of each blow registered in Norbert's brain. He was ready to pass out from shock when John dropped his head and lifted him up off the bed completely. The blinding pain returned to Norbert's body like a hot iron against his skin as he was abruptly thrown to the hard wooden floor. Norbert recoiled and let out a scream of pain and terror that cracked the air and filled the room. John violently kicked Norbert 3 times in the gut hard, cutting the scream short and knocking the wind from his lungs. Norbert crawled into a ball on his side, coughing blood and wheezing. John stood over Norbert, puffing and sweating. Blood dripped from his badly grazed knuckles. He held his hand directly in the other and stepped away from the defeated animal on the floor. Norbert lost vision in one eye, his nose broke in 3 places, and both cheekbones were shattered. The fur on his face was a soggy mat of red, and it glistened in the morning sun that broke through a gap in the curtains. As John stepped away from Norbert, he heard a familiar voice outside calling. He parted the curtain a little and saw the furry brown figure of Daggett Beaver scampering towards the lodge. "Your brother..." No, that's not. "Your brother has come to save you, Norbert," John spat. "Better take care of him, shouldn't we?" He sneered as he took his jeans and shirt from the closet and got dressed. I'll be back, Norbie, he said, looking behind him with a sadistic smile as he left the room. Norbert whimpered, with short, painful breath, as he lay on the floor alone in John's bedroom. He dared to hope for a second that Daggett might be able to help him, but that monster would surely overpower his spineless little brother.
Please don't kill him. Please.
Norbert begged and began to cry at the thought of his brother being murdered by John played in his head. The next morning, Daggett awoke to find Norbert's bed still empty. He began to worry and hopped down from his bunk bed. "Norbert!" he called loudly. "Norbert, where are you?" Daggett became distressed. He ran downstairs and out the front door. The morning sky was a crisp blue, a soft breeze rustled the trees, and the wet landscape shimmered in the early morning sunlight. Daggett called in his loudest, shrillest voice, scaring a small flock of birds from the trees nearby. Trembling with worry, he remembered something Norbert told him a while back when they were upriver, walking by that building.
This place gives me the creeps.
Norbert shuddered as they neared the house, but keeping their distance.
They say that it's used for logging, but there's still someone living in it. I hope it's not a hunter or something.
Norbert continued.
Remember that creepy place, Norbie? With all those spooky fursuit designers?
Dag seethed.
He better not be one of them or I'll...
Whoa there, big stallion!
Norbert laughed.
No need to get your tail in a twist. We better just stay away from here on out, eh, Daggett?
Among many possibilities of where Norbert may be, Daggett chose to look for his brother there. It was a long shot, but what if there was a hunter, and he had been taken for his fur? Daggett couldn't believe he was thinking of handing himself over to a possible hunter.
"You'd better be in big trouble, Norbert Beaver,"
he growled. Daggett vacated the dam and followed the river up through the forest. Thoughts of terrible things happening to his brother played out in his mind in anticipation. It was unbearable to think that he might have been captured for his fur or eaten by a wolf, or so many terrifying thoughts circled in his colorful imagination. The trees thinned, and in the clearing the lodge awaited. Daggett's stomach turned.
This is such a bad idea.
After taking a few deep breaths, he began making his way towards the lodge. As Daggett neared the large dwelling, he caught the faint musky scent of another beaver. Recognized it instantly as his brother's.
"I knew it!"
he exclaimed to himself and began to run to the lodge. The scent got stronger. Suddenly a muffled but disturbing sound of someone screaming broke the morning silence. It was his brother.
"Norbie! Norbie!"
Daggett shouted in panic. He knew he shouldn't have done that, but hearing his brother scream like that shook him. He knew he had to find Norbert fast. He didn't know what to do other than keep running towards the source of that horrible sound. He wanted nothing more than to turn and run back to the safety of the dam and hide like a beaver should, but it was his brother calling, and he couldn't just leave him. As he neared the building, a tall, slim young man came walking from around the corner carrying a big, old axe, and they both stopped dead in their tracks, staring at each other. John's neck stung painfully. Blood seeped from the wound, staining his clean white shirt. Daggett, however, came first on his list of things to take care of. John walked down the hallway to the utility closet in the laundry and looked through its contents. Brooms, hammers and nails, industrial vacuum cleaner, axe. John grabbed the aging wooden handle of the rusty axe and brandished it in front of him, inspecting the blade. It was blunt, but John was satisfied it would do the job. He turned from the closet smiling and walked through the kitchen to the front door. Not caring to hide the weapon he was carrying, John stepped outside and walked down the stairs with the axe swinging menacingly by his side. Around the corner, John saw Daggett was running towards the bedroom window. They met each other's eyes, both stopped instantly. After a short pause, John proceeded forwards towards the little brown beaver, smiling.
What have you done with Norbert?
Daggett whimpered, stepping backwards. John had no mercy for Daggett and felt compelled to hurt the cute furry rodent. Since childhood, John enjoyed torturing little animals such as mice. Animals that he found cute. Yay! I hope this isn't fully autobiographical. The act always made him feel sick, yet it was satisfying. John wasn't particularly fond of Daggett, but a part of him found him alluring.
He was Norbert's brother after all. I'm going to enjoy this, Daggett Beaver,
John said as he advanced and lifted the axe in front of him. Daggett saw the look of intent in John's eyes and turned to run. He only managed 3 steps before a blinding pain hit him in the side of the head, knocking him to the ground. Daggett got to his knees, holding the side of his head, and looked up. As his vision started to come back, the only thing he saw was the side of an axe racing towards his face. With a sickening crunch, Daggett's nose and cheekbone were shattered by the blow. He began screeching uncontrollably and fell over backwards, holding his arms in front of him in a vain attempt to protect himself. John took another powerful swing and brought the blade down Daggett's shoulder, almost severing his arm as it buried itself in his flesh and cut through the bone. A thin streak of blood shot from the wound as John pulled the axe away. Daggett convulsed and choked on his own blood, coughing and screaming. His vision was all black. All he could feel was the pain and pressure in his face, and his arm felt like it had been crushed in a garbage compactor. Through the adrenaline and panic, he wondered desperately what he had done to deserve this punishment. All he wanted to do was help his brother. He was ready to pass out from the pain before John ended it for him. John began to swing the axe upon Daggett in a homicidal fit of resentment, unremittingly ripping through fur, tearing muscle and smashing bones as each strike splattered John's front with thick drops of blood. As Daggett's body was hacked into an unrecognizable mess of bloody flesh and fur, the screams were soon replaced with only the wet-sounding thumps of meat being heavily cleaved. John finally stopped beating the poor animal when he became too tired to swing the axe upon it. He stood over Daggett's mangled body, puffing heavily, wiping the blood and sweat from his face with a shaky arm. He coughed a small laugh as he looked at what he had done. It was surreal. A wave of great satisfaction swept over him, and he dropped the bloody axe at his side. "Goodbye, Daggett Beaver, you fucking rodent." He spat and turned to make his way back inside, leaving a broken and deceased Daggett in a meaty pool of blood. Alone in John's bedroom, Norbert lay in the floor crying softly. He heard John's footsteps outside the window, followed shortly by a thump and Daggett shrieking. "Oh my God!" Norbert cringed. Daggett screamed out again, this time louder, followed by another thump and more shrieking. "Please, no. Please, Daggett." The brutal sound of his brother being beaten caused Norbert to vomit a dark red mess all over the floor. Soon, the sound of Daggett's screams ceased, and all Norbert could hear was the soft thudding of something impacting what he knew would be his brother's dead body. Norbert lay on the floor in John's room, unable to move, and stricken with pain and despair, his mouth dribbled blood and saliva that blotted in his sticky fur. His head throbbed painfully, as if it were still being beaten by that horrible human. Well,